There is nothing better than seeing the right band in the right place. This is Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Enjoy the show.
Yeah, you and I have seen several bands, mostly at the right place. I think most of our concerts have been pretty fitting. Everything from TNT at one of the tiniest clubs. Do you remember the name of that club? It was downtown. It was down in St. Louis.
I don't remember that. Unfortunately, I don't
Yeah,
remember that show very well. I think I may have gotten really drunk to go to see TNT.
that was probably a good idea. Although you still had one of the best lines you've ever uttered when you turned to me and said, all the guys around us with the long hair looking at the guys from TNT who had the longest, prettiest hair of anyone we've seen, you're like, man, there's some major hair envy in this place.
I'm pretty sure if that was junior or senior year, I also at that point had a flat top haircut, so I must have looked more out of place. And your hair was always short. You had a little bit of a mullet maybe back then, but
I'm pretty sure I did.
but I don't think nothing could match the luxurious flowing hair of TNT. That's for sure.
No, and then I mean, similar also downtown, we saw the Smithereens at Mississippi Nights, which was one of the better places to see a
Yeah.
show. And they tore it up. That was one of the best shows I've seen. Saw a much bigger show at I don't know what it was called at the time, but basically the St. Louis Arena, and
Right.
saw Seeger and Georgia Satellites, who were a bit of a big deal at the time.
Yeah,
And
that was the old arena too. That one's
yeah,
been torn down long since then. But yeah, that one. Somebody, or it was Gib, one of our fraternity brothers, snagged free tickets for us on that one because I think he did some tech work for them because he was a fucking computer genius. And
yep.
I think he brought like five or six of us to that show, and that was real last minute. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that experience.
Yeah, and I saw a couple shows there at the bar we worked at. A couple times I got some free tickets, and I didn't love seeing shows there, but it felt like an old time concert. Like just, I mean, it was an old arena. I
Yeah,
don't know if the
yeah.
acoustics were great, but I saw some good shows. I saw Queensryche there, which was probably not a show you wanted to see.
No, I'm sure I backed out of that one. I actually think the only band I ever saw perform there was that Seeger show. I don't remember seeing any other music there. I went to a couple blues games, and that was about it. I can't remember seeing any music there.
Dude,
But
I don't know what to tell you. I must not have taken you to the Night Ranger show that I saw there.
yeah, no, I didn't make that either. I'm sure you were trying to impress a girl and take her to your favorite band.
Yeah, and it
That
was
one I didn't make.
Night Ranger opening up for AC/DC. They were co-headliners and they would flip-flop, and
Yeah, I think you do. Is that you went with Hawkwood to that one, right?
I
Wasn't that the
think so,
one?
yeah.
That one I didn't make for some reason. But
Yeah.
I yeah, so we got together, shit, it's probably almost 20 years ago now, but we got together in Austin, Texas for what was maybe the second ever Austin City Limits Music Festival. It might have even been the first. It wasn't huge at the time, and it I think now has become this giant mass of people that would probably make me crazy. But that was a lot of fun. And if you consider that a venue, it was a giant outdoor park, basically. Uh,
And I enjoy those. I've gone to two or three music festivals outdoors, and
yeah, you just went to
um
one, right?
yeah, I just went to Rooster Walk up in Virginia. And but that one was cool. I mean, we got to see the drive-by truckers, we got to see old 97s, we got to see
In Austin, you
um
mean? Yeah,
yeah, in Austin, I'm sorry.
yeah.
And then of course we got to see the tribute to Johnny Cash. He had just passed away within the year, and it was a cool to see most of the artists up on stage just taking turns singing Cash songs, which is awesome.
Prior to Austin City Limits, I think the only other outdoor music festival I'd been to was New Orleans Jazz Fest, which is like one of the biggest ones ever. But those aren't really venues in the same sense. I love to go see bands in kind of intimate,
Yeah.
relatively small clubs, and there are quite a few in the Chicago or in the St. Louis area. or there were back when we were in St. Louis, and there are, of course, a ton in Chicago. And I've seen some great shows where you feel like you're one of a dozen people sometimes. So, what would you say is what makes one venue better than other venues? Do you have any theories as to why you like watching music in a particular place, or are there any particular characteristics?
Yeah, I think, and I'm just like you, and others may disagree. I'm going to throw one out there that I've never gone to. I'd love to go to see a show at Red Rocks
Oh,
and just to experience that. That's obviously a huge outdoor setting, but in general, I like the small, I'm giving away one of my choices, listening room type experiences where I mean, it's awesome if you're comfortable. So sitting at a table and just able to sit and enjoy your favorite band. Great acoustics. There's that intimacy. Like, I don't know, I've seen the Subdudes 4, 5, 6 times, and one of the things I love is where they come down off the stage without their mics, without
mm,
being plugged in, and play right in the middle of the audience, and that sort of stuff's cool. I mean, you can replicate that in a bigger arena. Like I saw the Lumineers up in Minneapolis's arena, and at one point I turned around and the guitarist was walking through the crowd, playing his guitar and
oh,
chatting with
wow.
people. I mean,
That's cool.
yeah. So I mean, to me, that's all about intimacy. So that's a little bit more about a band making it intimate. But the
Yeah.
venues, those that you can feel up close and personal, and I don't need to be in the front row. I'm not all, geeked about that, but just being able to really experience it up close and personal is what's important to me.
Yeah, I've been to one show at Chicago's City Winery, and I
Mhm.
know those are throughout the country, and I think they're considered to be a listening room situation as well. But those places, and again, I've only been to the one in Chicago, but I assume that they're kind of cookie cutter, frankly, and they're known for having artists that kind of sign, I think, exclusive deals. I know Steve Earle was playing only City Wineries for like one whole summer, it seemed like. Uh, but those places just felt a little shiny and new and a little too clean. I also find that my favorite venues, or at least in my memory, my favorite venues tend to be a little grimier. And I think that kind of lends to the feeling that you're in some kind of intimate space that, it's just you and the musicians. And there are a bunch of those in the Chicago area. And we're going to do a music venue draft as part of this episode. So I'm going to hold on to those and talk about them a little bit later. But one of the things that occurred to me when I was trying to outline for this episode was what were the worst venues that you've seen a show in, and why were they bad? And I don't know if you had a chance to think about that at all. But I'm curious to know, like, generally they end up being kind of like shitty shows that you've seen, and you blame the venue.
So if it's one where you're going to blame the venue for a bad experience, there was a place in Cincinnati. There was a outdoor, what do they call those? It's not an auditorium because that's indoors, but
Amphitheater.
amphitheater. And so they'd have the seating down below and then the lawn seats. And
Yep.
there's a couple of them here in North Carolina, very similar to what was in Cincinnati. That one was down on the river. So it's a very pretty setting. And I saw some good shows there. But the worst experience I've ever had at a concert was there. I was with some high school buddies. We were in the seated section. It was probably some rock show. It may have even been Night Ranger for all I know. And my buddy next to me was kind of a jackass, and he had to go to the bathroom. He didn't want to go to the bathroom, so he stood there and peed like where he was standing, and he ended up peeing on the guy in front of him. The guy in front of him got a little upset about
Yeah, you think?
that. Yeah. Turned around, went to pee on my friend, who proceeded to kick the guy right where he was peeing from.
Jeez.
And
I don't know if I go eye for an eye there. Don't you just turn around and punch your friend?
yeah,
That seems like
yeah.
a simpler
It
response
seems
to
like
that.
that's sort of like in a movie where you're like, I'm going to kill you, but I'm not going to do it now, so that maybe you'll
Right.
survive for a
First,
while.
first I'm gonna piss on you. Holy shit.
So
Yeah.
that was just a bad experience. But
Yeah. I don't,
easily that is that's my worst concert experience. And I mean, the thing about those outdoor places is a lack of control of the weather and stuff. I mean, so you'll be
Mhm.
dealing with like in Cincinnati, like where we've lived, at least where I remember where we've been, like Cincinnati, St. Louis, river towns where it's humid as hell. So if
Yeah.
you're seeing a show in the summer, it's a good chance you're going to sweat your ass off. But they do their best to make it a good show, and I've seen several really good shows. I saw Chris Christopherson actually at the amphitheater here in North Carolina, which was really sweet.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got on my list of worst venues, one of those worst venues is an amphitheater that is in the suburbs of Chicago, not far from where I live, in Tinley Park, Illinois. And it is currently called the Credit Union One Amphitheater. Uh, Before that, it was the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater, the First Midwest Bank Amphitheater, the Tweeter Center, the New World Theater, and the World. Like it's been 12 different things, and I just always call it the World because I think maybe the last time I saw a show there, it was the World Theater. So it's been quite a while. But it's one of those concrete bowls with really uncomfortable seats in the seated section. And then as you described, then there's a lawn that goes out above it. So the seated section is covered. A small portion of the grass is kind of covered, but not really. Just depends on the time of day, whether you get some shade maybe. But that place, it sells out all the time. Chris Stapleton just played there last weekend. My buddy's daughter just went to a show, so it's still a very popular venue, but the acoustics are awful. They're a little better if you're seated inside, but then the seats are uncomfortable. I saw one of the Lollapalooza used to be at that theater. That's where, or at
Hmm.
that amphitheater, that's where it was located before it started traveling, or I guess that's when it was traveling around the country, maybe originally, before it got set permanently up in the city of Chicago. So we went once to see Smashing Pumpkins play because my wife is related to Jimmy Chamberlain. He's her uncle, so we got great seats. We were up in like the they have boxes, luxury boxes, but even their luxury boxes are just big concrete, boxes. It the sound is just awful in that place, and I guess if you've got a band that plays loud like the Pumpkins did, it was fine, but it's just not a great place to see a show. And I've seen a couple other. I saw there's something called Newport Blues Festival, or maybe it was Newport Folk Festival. They did a version of it about 20 years ago where they traveled around from venue to venue, and that wasn't great. And if you're sitting out on the lawn, you can't hear shit. So
Yeah.
it's just crowded and people are stepping over you, spilling beer on you or your blanket. Or I've never really enjoyed a show there, but there is some appeal to getting to sit outside and listen to music. So it just kind of depends on, I think, on your mood as much as anything else. One of the other kind of awful venues, in my opinion, that is very popular still in the city of Chicago and gets huge bands to play is a place called the Aragon Ballroom, and it is ages old. It's like 100 years old, and it's this giant square room that it has two levels, like you can stand up above and or stand below. And I've never been to a show that had seats of any sort. It's just kind of a big empty room. It's a ballroom. I'm sure it used to be a place where a big band played and everybody danced. It also has horrible, horrible acoustics. And if you work your way up to right in front of the band, it's fine. But I haven't been that guy ever. So if you're standing in the back or standing in the middle of the room, everything bounces a little bit. And I've seen about 3 or 4 shows in the last 20 years there, and I've never enjoyed the show just because it's just kind of an uncomfortable place to see music, and you can't hear very well. Everything, like I said, echoes. It seems like. But I'm in a minority because people love the Aragon, and it's one of the venues in Chicago that's still standing, still books great bands, and lots of people love to go there. But it was kind of on the top of my list of worst venues I've seen music in.
Yeah, I don't know that I've gone to like there's places that should be unappealing, and I'm probably going to draft them because I've seen some great shows there, like
Yeah, and it does depend on the band, right?
standing room only. Yeah, standing room only. Not even like great setup, like weird balconies. I mean, I can talk about it when we
Yeah.
do the draft, but and I don't rush to the beginning of this. In fact, they have poles throughout, and which would seem to be a bad idea. I mean, they got to hold the building up, but I usually look for one of those poles and lean against it.
The other, probably one of the greatest bands in the world that I had one of the worst times for because of where I saw them is REM. The only time I ever saw REM, I saw them at the United Center in Chicago, which is where the Bulls and the Blackhawks play. And I am sure, again, if you're on the floor at the United Center watching a band, it's probably awesome. I've never done that. And these tickets, I bought the cheapest tickets I could get because I didn't have any money. And I am not kidding you. I was in the last row at the top of the United Center. It must have been 20 degrees hotter where I was than where they were on the floor. It was hot. It was sweaty. The seats are packed next to each other. Like it's like sitting in a, on a Southwest flight, it was so uncomfortable. And those seats at the top of the United Center are so steep to get up to them that if you were to stand up, which I did once, like I got an attack of vertigo. I thought I was going to fall and I thought I was going to tumble like all the way to the bottom. It was the sound was horrible up there, and it's probably much better in the lower seats. And in fact, I did get to see a show once from like one of the luxury boxes for a different show entirely. But that turned me off of the United Center, and I've never paid for tickets to go see a show at the United Center since that REM show because it was such a miserable experience.
You talked about the United Center, which spurred one memory, and this is one of those sort of mixed. It reminded me of one of the worst places I've seen a concert because it was the same thing. Like you're way up in the rafters, but very mixed memories. So when my daughter was a teenager, she's now 27, she wanted to go see Miley Cyrus and the Jonas Brothers with a friend of hers. And I'm sure she was called Hannah Montana at the time. And it was at the arena in Greensboro, which hosts a lot of stuff. It used to be where they'd play the ACC tournament and everything else. So it's a good arena, but it's one of those bigger arenas. Sitting up in the rafters, having to watch Hannah Montana was painful. Having my daughter right next to me was cool. So those are the mixed memories, but
Yes,
not
yes.
not exactly the greatest sound and everything else. And not a band that I would have chosen to go to on my own. So,
Yeah, that one sounds tough. My daughter never got into Hannah Montana, so there was never any push to see. Basically, there wasn't much push to see any bands at all until she was in high school, and then she had no desire to go with me anyway. So I was able to avoid kind of some of those schmaltzy Disney type shows. I don't think I had to do any of those. Yeah, and again, when you go to those kind of places, I'm sure, like everything else, the more money you got, the better that show's going to be. If you're on the
yep.
floor down in front, it's probably fantastic. But if you're like most of us and buying tickets for the cheap seats, I know through work, my wife got back in like 2011, maybe she got tickets for a show at the United Center, which was the Watch the Throne tour that was with Kanye West and Jay-Z. And we sat in the luxury boxes, the luxury boxes that I'd been in for sporting events before, same reason, because Dawn can usually score tickets. I'd never seen a musical performance from there. And that was pretty cool. Again, nice big comfy seats, a bar 10 feet behind you, bathrooms right there, plenty of elbow room. And that was an amazing show. It's the only rap show I've ever been to. And of course, I don't know that it's fair to call that show necessarily, it's not really a rap show in the sense that, it was a giant concert tour with dancers and a fucking stage that at one point lifted the two of those guys up. They must have been 30 feet in the air. It was phenomenal. So that was kind of a cool experience. And seeing it from the box is a lot different from sweating your ass off, all the way at the top of the dome. But
Yep.
still not a giant fan of the United Center for music, regardless. So one of the things we wanted to do, as we've been doing recently, is a draft of our favorite music venues. Are you prepared for a draft?
I am prepared. Why don't you flip that fucking coin? I'm going to lose again.
All right. Well, you keep calling the same thing, and you keep losing.
Heads.
Heads it is. We broke the streak. So this is a serpentine draft. Whoever picks first picks one, and then after that we each pick two until we've picked a total of 10 music venues to recommend to our listeners as the best ever.
I'm
What's
going
your
to
first?
keep the first. I'm going to keep the first pick instead of deferring to you, and I'm
Okay.
going to take Mississippi Nights. I figured that was the only one that we might be vying for together.
That was my first choice. Yes, that was going to be my pick if I won the coin toss. Mississippi Nights is. Did we determine it is closed? It's no longer in existence.
Which
Yeah,
is very, very, very sad.
yeah. That was a fun place. It was one of those places that was a little grimy. It basically had kind of some seating on either side, and way at the back, it had, if I remember, like high top bar tables. But
Yes.
the inside of it was just standing room only. And I don't know. I mean, I never went to a show where there were tables set up there. I'm sure they would do that and could do that, but I never saw a show there where they did. Including going to see Cowboy Junkies once, one of the first shows I ever took my wife to. Maybe the first concert Dawn and I went to was Mississippi Nights and Cowboy Junkies, and that was a standing room situation too, and they're pretty low key and kind of ballady. But that was going to be my first choice. That's great. In my memory, one of the best ever.
And I don't care if I've told the story before, but it was in Mississippi Nights where I got to go to the bathroom right next to the lead singer of Helix. So,
That's going to go on your tombstone.
yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, so I'm up. My choice, and I have a feeling a lot of these choices are what's the word that I'm thinking of? I think they're choices from long ago and far away, and they just kind of they maybe these venues weren't as great as we thought they were, but they sure seemed awesome at the time. And that's why I am picking for my first choice Cicero's Basement Bar in University
Yes.
City, just outside of St. Louis. We lived in U City when we were attending WashU and after. It was a cave. You went down a flight of steps. There was Cicero's was just like an Italian restaurant on a corner in U City, and they had decent food. It was again kind of a grimy, dirty neighborhood type place. You went down those steps and you had to fucking duck to walk over to get to a table because of all the beams that were going across. I mean, the clearance couldn't have been more than like 7 feet anywhere in the place. But we saw a bunch of bands there, local bands, a few touring bands. Nobody huge, of course, because it probably only held about shit 50 people,
I think it was
maybe.
like 17.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we definitely went to shows where there were only 17, and they'd have blues guys, blues musicians there. I went a couple times and saw jazz combos play there. That's where I saw Material Issue, which is a story I've told in the past, and kind of fell in love with that band and that style of music. But second pick of the draft is Cicero's, just because it's a sentimental pick if ever there was one. My my next pick, which will be the third pick in the draft, is going to be Shuba's in Chicago. I've seen some great bands there. A lot of the bands that I love. We saw Todd Snyder there. I saw oh shoot. Now I'm drawing a blank, but I've probably seen a half a dozen bands there that I just was so excited to find out. And that's a place that it was smaller than Mississippi Nights. It didn't hold as many people, but it kind of had the same setup. There were a few tables in the back, and everything else was just standing room in front of directly in front of the band. So you were really close. And I saw a lot of bands play there where it wasn't necessarily even packed. So you really felt like they were just singing to you. And that's one of my all-time favorite places to go see a band is Shuba's in Chicago.
All right. There's sort of a segue here because Shubas is one of those places where artists will put out live albums from. I think
Yes.
probably because it has such great sound. A similar place is the Ram's Head Tavern and Listening Room in Annapolis, and that's going to be my second choice. I've probably seen a dozen or more shows there, from Southern Culture on the Skids to Alejandro Escoveda to the Subdudes to Tommy Malone solo to Kevin Welch. and Lyle Lovett. And I saw Lyle Lovett the day after having my appendix or my gallbladder removed. I was leaning up against a wall because I was so sore I couldn't move. But it was one of the better shows I've seen. All right, so those are the more intimate places. With my third choice, I'm going to go aspirational and take Red Rocks.
Yeah.
I've never been there, but it has I'm assuming a very well-deserved reputation, and it's a place that if I have a bucket list, it's probably the one place I would like to go see a concert. And I check the schedule out every year to see if there's anyone that'd be enough to motivate me to go see them. And there are. It's just it'd be a trip.
Yeah, my law partner just took his three kids. I'm like 3 weeks ago, they made a trip out of it. All three of his kids love the band Lord Huron,
Hmm.
and he has relatives in Colorado, so they have a place to stay, which is very helpful. It's like a half hour, it sounds like, or less from the venue. And he texted me and sent me about a 30-second video from the show as it was going on. And on my phone, the acoustics sounded amazing. He said it is, and he's a music guy. He's been to a million shows in a lot of different places, and he said it is one of the top three shows he's ever seen. He said the band was great. He said, but seeing it there just put it towards the top of the list. And I'm with you. I've never been there to see a show. I've heard there's a couple of my favorite live albums, were recorded there, and it just seems like the coolest place in the world to see a band. I would love to go there myself. Maybe that's our trip. Maybe we figure out how to find a band and both go to Denver and
Let's do
go
it.
to Red Rocks. All right, I'm all over the place now. I have the sixth and seventh pick, and I think I have to go with, I'm going to go with Mid City Lanes in New Orleans.
Hmm.
And again, it's a sentimental choice because the Mid City Lanes that I'm picking as the sixth best music venue doesn't exist anymore. They moved to a new spot. I don't even think they're in Mid City now. This is a place that was always called, it was the Rock and Bowl, is what they called it. And it was an actual bowling alley, kind of a small place off the beaten path, but they had a stage, a tiny little stage, and they had a kitchen. So you could have the most amazing red beans and rice or a po' boy while you were there. You could bowl a few games, and they would have, primarily at that time anyway, lots of Cajun bands, lots of Zydeco bands. And it was one of the first venues that my wife and I went to on our first trip to New Orleans, which was our honeymoon. And somebody had recommended it. It took us, this is pre-internet basically. So, we had to ask a cab driver to get us there because we didn't know where the hell we were going. We bowled a game while we were listening to a Zydeco band, and it was so much fun. And we tried to go back every time we returned to New Orleans. And for a while, we were going every year because we would go for Jazz Fest, but we'd always try to make time to go to the Mid City Lanes and get something to eat and listen to a band. Usually a band we never heard of, but just a local Zydeco or Cajun band. And I've been to the new Mid City Lanes. It is not the same. Now it's a big venue. Now they've got like 20 bowling alleys. Now they sell merch. It was immediately when you walk in the door, there's a store to buy all the merch. It's not the same experience at all. And the new one would not make my list, but the old one definitely has a place in my heart as one of the coolest places I ever went to go see music. And my next pick is a place that still has great shows every weekend. It's the Old Town School of Folk Music in
Hmm.
Chicago. I love that place. They used to be in a different location and moved again about probably, it's a long time ago now, maybe even 25 years ago. They moved to their current location, which is an old junior high school, I think. It might have been an elementary school, but it had an auditorium kind of in the center of the building. And the way they adapted that auditorium as a music venue is amazing. It's a working school of music. Like you take lessons there and you can take guitar and harmonica, which I've done in the past, and singing and dancing. It's like a 4-story building, I think, or at least with a basement plus 3 stories going up. The auditorium is square on the main floor, right in the middle of the building, and it has some of the most amazing acoustics you've ever heard in your life. It is such a wonderful place to see a band. It's one of those where my list of musicians I've seen play there is 20 or 30 long. And just about every year I go to see at least one performer. All of our favorites play there. Steve Earle plays there when he comes through town frequently. In fact, he taught a songwriting class there for like one whole summer, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But it is such a great place to see Americana style music in particular. And it's not the most comfortable theater in the world. They're bench seats. I mean, they have cushions and stuff, but you're literally, you tend to sit right next to the person next to you. You're hoping that you don't get a big fat guy, but, or they're hoping they're not sitting to me, I guess, vice versa. But it doesn't matter because once the music starts, it's just really, really cool.
Nice.
You have number 8.
I do. So I'm going to go with a similarly, first off, the Old Town, what's the full title of it? The last one you just chose?
It's the Old Town School of Folk Music.
Old Town School of Folk, yeah. I mean, they've been a name since back in the 60s. I think there's an album of freedom songs, civil rights songs. It's got a really cool history.
Yeah, it really does. Like I said, my first harmonica lessons were taken at the old school, and I'm awful with street names in Chicago and neighborhoods, so I'm not going to try to identify where it was, but it was closer to downtown. It's now further north on Lincoln. It's way north now, but they made the right choice because the old building was like you go down a hall and have to make like 4 turns to get to the room you were looking for. I got lost almost every time I went there. This is a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer, but particularly the performance area is just amazing.
All right, so I'm going to go with a similarly cramped place. It's in Carborough, North Carolina, which is it feels like it's a part of Chapel Hill, but it's more of an artsy area, and it's called the Cat's Cradle. It reminds me a little bit of a smaller version of Mississippi Nights. There's very, very little seating. There is a bar. I mean, the best beer you're going to get is something like a Pabst Blue Ribbon. I mean, it's very
nice,
sort of grimy and eclectic in a fun way. They have 2 rooms. One is, decent size. It's probably about 3/4 of the size of Mississippi Nights. The other one is probably 1/4 of the size of Mississippi Nights. It's tiny. I saw Corey Brannon in that one. I've seen some good shows in the small room. I've seen some really good shows in the bigger room as well. They just purchased some land adjacent to where they're at and are in the process of building a new venue. I'll be curious if they keep the old ones or replace them. And if they replace them, it will be sad. It's nothing to brag about. Like I said, there's a couple like random seats, like bar stools sitting around if you're lucky to grab one. But otherwise, you're standing. There is a balcony you can stand on and get a good view. But it's nothing fancy. It's got good sound and artists at the level that you and I would appreciate. Like Corey Brannon's been there, and Nick O'Case is coming. Artists like that. In fact, Rustin Kelly is coming, and I'm going to go see him in October. All right, so I'm gonna finish with another one that I've never been to, but it feels like one that I should have been to. Ryman Auditorium, the original place to the Grand Ole Opry. I know it's been upgraded over the years. I understand that they have bench seats in it, so you're not talking about comfort. You're just talking about the greats of country music, and it's a place that people define a level of success by being able to play there. And I'm going to go with it. I even I've gone to Nashville a couple times. I've never gone to a show, so I suck.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've never been there. I have a friend, the boys soccer coach, is going to see a show at the Ryman later this summer. He's got a trip where he's going to just kind of drive down in the South, and that's one of the things he really wanted to do. I'm very jealous of him and anybody who's seen a show there. I mean, how often do you hear the Ryman get shouted out in the lyrics of country songs?
Right, exactly.
All the time, it feels like. And I would, your 2 aspirational picks would definitely be on my list if I'd been to see him. I kind of went with places that I had at least one show in. But if I could pick places to go, it would be first Red Rocks and second the Ryman. and I'm hoping to pull that off at some point, someday soon.
Someday soon.
Which takes us to number 10, my final pick for the draft. I am at a loss. I've got 5 or 6 places that deserve to be mentioned, so I will probably eventually mention them anyway. But I am going to pick The Hideout, also a Chicago bar, music venue, tiny little kind of grimy place. It's too small to get giant performers, but we've talked before about Bloodshot Records and the artists that put out albums for Bloodshot, particularly back in the 90s and early 2000s. Lots of the performers that were working as musicians and putting out albums through Bloodshot Records seem to work as bartenders at the Hideout. Like lots of them, I can't remember all the names at this point, but it was funny because somebody would, you hear somebody whisper and say, "Hey, that girl's she's so and so, and just put out an album," that kind of thing. That's where I think I may have dragged you to the Hideout once when you visited Chicago. I can't remember. I know I took my brother, and I feel like you may have been with us too. It might have been our wedding anniversary weekend. But that's the place where Devil in a Woodpile played. They had like a standing Tuesday show for years and years. That's a real kind of gut bucket blues band. They're all, I was going to say they're relatively young. They're not. They're my age. But at the time we were seeing them, it was relatively young. But they played kind of old timey blues with a stand up bass and and a washboard and that kind of stuff. But it's a great place to go see music. You really feel like you're just hanging out with somebody, in their basement or their family room as they're playing their songs for you. So despite a lot of competition for that 10th spot, I'm going to pick the Hideout in Chicago as one of our top venues to see music.
I think that's a great list.
I do too.
I broke the rules a little bit, but I figured, some of the other choices I had, there's a place here called Motorco Music Hall, very similar in feel to Cat's Cradle. So
Is that near you?
Yeah, I saw the Subdudes. The last time I saw the Subdudes, I saw them there. It's got a big bar in the middle. It's got a bunch of tables. I sat at the bar with my back to the bar facing the stage. It was a great place to see a show.
Yeah.
There's been some bands maybe a little bigger than what you might see at Cat's Cradle. It's in a kind of industrial / artsy area of Durham where there's some breweries and other stuff. So it's just fun to go down there and watch shows. But it was very similar to the others, so I wanted to go with something I haven't seen.
Yeah, and that's just it. Is a lot of obviously we have a certain taste, both of us, because a lot of the ones I picked are similar to each other. A lot of the ones that I decided not to pick was for that reason, because, for example, and a lot of them just had real sentimental value to me. So, for example, I almost put Graham Chapel from Wash U in the list because when we were there anyway, they would have performances there, live music performances, and I saw B.B. King play at Graham Chapel, which is right square in the middle of the Washington University campus, and it's a church. It's a chapel where they have services every Sunday. But as you might imagine, the acoustics were amazing, and to see a legend like B.B. King play there, just that show, which is the only performance I saw in Graham Chapel, was almost enough to put that on the list for me because it was such a cool experience. And there's a bar in New Orleans called the Maple Leaf Bar. And it is exactly that kind of place. Tons of live music, tons of kind of small to medium-sized bands that you may or may not have heard of, but a big old dance floor. And if you go there on a Friday or Saturday night when you're waiting to eat dinner at the Cajun restaurant next door, you'll be there till 3 a.m. You'll just be dancing and having the best time in the world. And I did that a number of times with my wife, long before we had kids, and we would it's one of those places that just has a special place for me, and I almost picked that as well. There's just all of those kind of cool one-off type of things that didn't make my list.
All right, draft is over. That takes us to the newest segment for our podcast, the Loft of Wisdom. Boom, 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 boom,
Boom, boom,
or something
boom.
like that. Get that resonating music so it sounds like it's important.
You better open up your eyes, babe, because fools do get wide.
For the Loft of Wisdom, Tom and I are going back to our college days where we roomed together in a corner double, had these big old wooden lofts, and we decided to write inspirational or drunk inspired quotes all over the damn thing. So these are mostly going to be inspirational. I have not been drunk on one of these episodes yet, but I won't rule it out. So
Yeah, I'm not sure mine is inspirational. I just think it's just an awesome,
yes.
It's actually very depressing. So I would call it the opposite of inspirational if you listen to the rest of the lyrics of the song. But it is a song lyric. It's from a brand new album, which I'm going to talk about again just a little bit later. But the album is The Black Dog and the Wandering Boy, which just came out on June 20th of this year by James McMurtry. And the song is called South Texas Lawman. And it is a depressing song. It's a song about a guy getting old. And if I'm hearing the words correctly, it's also about a guy who's either contemplating or accomplishing suicide at the end of the song. But one of the best lines I've heard in a long time, one of the best lyrics I've heard is the following. He says, his years are empty bottles now, tossed off in the ditch. And if that isn't just an evocative lyric, it's just a cool piece of poetry, I think. And it definitely captures the entire feel for this song, which, as I said, is a bit sad, but it's about a guy who was a police officer down in Texas, and how he used to be, the man, so to speak, and he used to be young and strong and used to command respect, and he doesn't anymore. And that line, his years are empty bottles now, tossed off in the ditch, I think captures that feeling better than probably anything I've ever heard.
Funny, I went with a sad ass lyric too. I wanted to brag about the fact that I've read 2 books in 2 weeks. I did finish Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Another really solid effort. I enjoyed it a lot. And there was a scene where one of the lead characters is talking to his ex-wife, and clearly continued to have some feelings for her. And then he realized just what a bad person she was. And he mumbled something like he stopped loving her today, which is obviously referencing the George Jones song. So I went with the lyrics from that song, particularly these specific ones. I went to see him just today. Oh, but I didn't see no tears, all dressed up to go away. First time I'd seen him smile in years. He stopped loving her today. He's dead in his casket. They've dressed him up, put a smile on his face, and only then does he stop loving her. But the book, which I think is one of the better ones I've read, I should have listened to our first episode better and followed Tom's recommendation to read S.A. Cosby. I love how he twisted around just a little bit. Great book, fantastic song. I don't often go all the way back to the classics, but since we're going back in time on this episode a little bit, I figured a George Jones song would be a fitting place to start.
We are just depressing as hell, the two of us. For some reason, this has turned into a bit of a melancholy episode. I didn't think that's what would happen, talking about, seeing bands and our favorite music venues, but man, those are 2 depressing quotes right there, dude.
They are.
But they're going on the loft anyway.
Good shit, man.
Yeah.
So I guess we don't do drunken quotes anymore. We just do depressed quotes.
Or just imagine how depressing they'd be if we were drunk. It might be worse. Our next segment is Staff Picks. Just around the corner from you. Staff Picks are where Chris and I recommend something we're excited about. Generally something new or coming out soon. Sometimes something we just weren't aware of until now. My staff pick is going to be very familiar because I am recommending as a staff pick the album The Black Dog and the Wandering Boy by James McMurtry, which just came out a couple weeks ago as we record this. I don't often double up this way, but I am a big James McMurtry fan. I think he's a fantastic songwriter. He's got this literary history. I started listening to him because his old man is Larry McMurtry, who's written some of my favorite books ever. But James he's had a music career for probably 40 years now. and he rarely puts out an album I don't like, but this one is kind of over and above that. This is one of his classics, one of maybe the best ones he's ever done, which I think is pretty impressive because I believe he's probably in his mid to late 60s at this point, and he's still putting out great work. It is a little, it can get a little depressing. I think he may be considering his own mortality, particularly when you listen to South Texas Lawman, as I said earlier. But it's such a great album. He's got such a unique voice. You always know it's James McMurtry as soon as he starts to sing, and he's got a way with his lyrics for sure. So that's my staff pick: The Black Dog and The Wandering Boy by James McMurtry.
All right. I went with one that you're either going to love or hate. I'm thinking you're going to love it. Ian Noe, who I like quite a bit, and he tends to sing some pretty downbeat stuff, but he's a great songwriter. He did a remake of Born in the USA, an incredibly different version, very acoustic, very Ian Noe-ish with his voice and the way he delivers lyrics. I love it. I've listened to it over and over again. I've been wanting to get more into him. Some of his songs are just fantastic, and other ones are just a little too much for me. So, I mean, he's one of my favorite ones of his is a song called Tom Barrett. And another one is A Ballad of a Retired Man.
Now I remember. I knew I had heard a song of his.
Yeah, he's kind of fucking depressing, but
Mm.
I do think a more downbeat delivery of Born in the USA might convey a little bit more of how the song is intended and is a nice political statement on what's going on these days. But that's just maybe me reading too much into it.
I have not heard the song. I'm going to listen to it immediately when we're done recording. You know, Springsteen did a very slow balladish, uh, completely different version of that song in an EP a few years back, probably more than 10 years back now that I think about it. So I'm really curious to hear Ian Noe's version and compare it to that one, because I did feel when I heard Springsteen's version, the slow kind of sadder version of it, it definitely you could tell that's what he intended all along, and what he put on that album was just different. You know, it's just
Yeah.
it was just put together in a different way. But I always love a good cover, frankly, of a Springsteen song. People love him so much that they really put a lot into that when they decide to do one of his songs. They usually put everything into it. So I'm looking forward to that. That sounds like a cool song to listen to.
Yeah. All right. That brings us to the end. Well, not quite to the end. Sorry.
Not quite the end, to the finale, to the
To the
big finale.
finale. Boom, boom, boom. I have my own music. I have my own
Yeah,
music
we don't. I don't
soundtrack
need to put music in anymore.
today. So this is where Tom and I choose songs for the season playlist. Each episode, Tom and I choose a song. We put it to a running playlist that reflects the various topics that we covered during that season. We're in season 8, and these will be songs number. I might have to do some math because we're a little short. This is episode 7, which should usually be 14, but we started with a 2-part. So these are songs 11 and 12 for the season 8 playlist.
Yep. Do you want to do yours first?
Sure. I struggled with this one. I was deciding whether I'd go with a live version of a song that I really liked. Almost went with a Subdued song where they recorded the Ram's Head. And then I was out running this morning and in the heat, and I must have become sort of delusional or something. And I went back to the 1980s and a song that just reminds me of arena rock, Jukebox Hero from Foreigner. I haven't thought about that song in 20 years, and something triggered it. I was looking for something very different, just trying to play a song that might, either have a quote, whatever I was looking for. And all of a sudden I was like, Jukebox Hero. And if you, it's still a great song, man.
I
It's
love that
just
fucking song. That song is like my most guilty rock and roll pleasure.
Yes.
Like if I tell people one of my favorite songs is Jukebox Hero by Foreigner, they immediately start to back away from me slowly. But you just put that on the outline while we were talking. I was like, I love that fucking song. That's a great
Yeah.
song for the playlist.
I was wanting to do anything but I think it's a fitting song because it's all about wanting to play in front of a huge crowd and all this other stuff. It's going on the playlist, damn it.
Yeah, that I haven't listened to. I listen to it, a few times a year. I'll just play it. I'll usually close the door so nobody else can hear. Put on my headphones so nobody knows I'm listening to Foreigner. But
As you
I
should.
actually have Foreigner Records, which is like they're one of their, I think it was their first greatest hits album. So it's even funnier that I listened to it off of that one. But great pick, great pick. I love that song. I picked a song that was performed at the Old Town School of Folk Music. It's a relatively recent release. In fact, I didn't know that Joe Pug had done a live release from the Old Town School of Folk Music till you mentioned it during an episode a few weeks back. I immediately went and found it, downloaded it, listened to it. Joe Pug is a great performer. He's a classic singer-songwriter. He's got a very distinctive voice, and both in terms of what you hear and what he writes. And he has a song about being the child of the 60s called I Do My Father's Drugs. And it's a cool, the studio version, I can't remember which album it first came out on, but it's awesome. Always liked the song. But he does a live version that he recorded at the Old Town School, and it's very cool. And because we're doing music venues, I thought it was a perfect fit.
Good choice. I thought at one point you'd gotten away from Joe Pug, man.
No, I have yet to see him live. He plays in Chicago with some frequency, and I always seem to miss him. I don't think like he doesn't put out a ton of
Maybe that's what
work.
it was. Yeah.
So I do think that he's kind of, and that's why I was surprised that he put out this new live ones. I don't know that he's been putting out new music, and I haven't checked recently. But he does play in Chicago at least once or twice a year, and I always manage to miss it. I've still never seen him live. I really want to go see him. But I'm still a Joe Pug guy.
Well, he's back in the rotation since you're adding him to the playlist, and I think this playlist is going to be a pretty good one. I like where we're going with things.
Yeah, it's as usual. It gets the connections aren't always apparent because it's episode to episode, but it's all good music. And the fact that Jukebox Hero on it is made it one of my favorite already. We're not even done yet. Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois. Please email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com. Please send us your questions, your comments, your suggestions. We can use all the help we can get.
We certainly can. You can also message us directly on our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. On our website, you can find all the various information that we've shared on the episode. We have links to the playlists. You can listen to the podcast itself directly on the website. We have all the various recommendations, staff picks, loft of wisdom quotes, anything you can think of that we've discussed is right there on our website, as well as information that links to all the great guests that we've managed to get to join us on Third Song In.
Please follow us, rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. Download it. Please download the episodes. Give us all your fucking stars. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Tell people about us. Word of mouth works really well, and we're horrible at promoting ourselves. So if you can let other people know what we're doing and point them in our direction, we would appreciate it.
You can stream all of our playlists on all the streaming services out there, from Spotify to YouTube Music and everything in between. We do a playlist for each season. We're now on season 8, and we have them all the way back to season 1. We also do special playlists whenever we have a guest, and I already have 3 for this season. I strongly encourage you to check out. If you search for Third Song In, you should be able to find any of the playlists because we always include that in the titles.
We also have a Facebook page. We have a Blue Sky account, an Instagram account. Please follow our social media. We try to keep people apprised of what's going on Third Song In, and we also tend to share the content and dates and details for our guests as well. So you can communicate to us through Facebook, Blue Sky, and Instagram as well, and we will respond wherever you reach out to us.
In addition to the podcast, Tom and I also do a blog each week, and we put those out there both on the website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. You can also subscribe to them via Substack.
Next episode, we talk Rocky movies.
You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, yeah. We never have technical difficulties. We have content difficulties. We have presentation difficulties.
To what? Fuck, why? Just stop talking, dumbass.
Well, that would be a shitty podcast if we just stopped talking.
I think AI could do a better job than me.
Chad GPT.
Chad GPT.
Chad, take it away. I do playlists and then I'll do Facebook page. That makes more sense.
Let's rotate
That's what you were supposed to do. Fucking, I stepped in because you were just staring at the camera, not knowing you were supposed to share the playlist. So
I
do the
know.
playlist.
I was looking back for all the guests to
Chad,
reference their names.
Chad, please mute Chris's microphone.
Get your shit straight, man. We're season
All
8.
right.